Hey guys, it's Rawrster here. I've got Drecks with me today. He's one of the top 6 finalists for our community map making competition.
Hello, good evening.
Drecks actually got 2 maps in the top 6. He's the creator of Rawrster and of Overload. So Drex, why don't you just start off and tell us a bit about yourself?
Yeah, I'm a 45-year-old Dutchman, and yeah, with hobbies is gaming and creating levels for different games. I started out in 2003 for Medal of Honor, Allied Assault. I'm interested in World War II, and that game brought my interest in World War II and gaming together. And with that, I started out creating maps. So, about myself, yeah, I work as a police officer in the Netherlands for 12 years now, and I'm married and 2 sons, twin sons of 19 years old.
Cool. So it sounds like you do have some experience creating maps. How long have you been playing America's Army for?
Yeah, that's funny. I got introduced by Wolverine only June 2014, early June. He showed me the game. I know Wolverine from all the games I played and created maps for. And he told me about American Army. And I joined the forums, downloaded the editor, and off we go. It was early June. I guess I joined the forums early June 2014.
Oh, wow. Well, it's good to see fresh faces then.
Yeah. Yeah, that was funny. But the game quickly growed on me because I came from a total different type of game, and then the overall atmosphere on the servers was great too. Other players helped you out. There was no real. Everybody was friendly, and that's important. And yeah, the game types I really liked, so that I sticked. I started to create maps for it. And Wolverine introduced me to a server where they played custom maps. It was the BME server, and yeah, I had a great time.
Well, that's fantastic to hear. So yeah, it's obvious you've got some experience, as you mentioned, making levels before. I'm kind of curious what your experience is with, the various engines and games out there that you've worked on in the past.
Yeah, I started out in 2003 with Medal of Honor Allied Assault. It used a Radiant editor, and with that I recreated maps, and then I joined an American game community named After Hours, and it was a devoted community with people really into custom mapping, and with them we created all types of maps, different atmosphere. And when Medal of Honor yeah, from Medal of Honor we more or less went to Call of Duty and Call of Duty United Offensive, and with that game we got huge map with vehicles and stuff like that. And with the After Hours community they even created an own game type. It was called Conquest, where you had to gain territory over the map in order to defeat your enemy. That was a great time back then.
So have you had any experience with the Unreal Engine previous to America's Army?
Yeah, that was Radiant, but in 2005 I got to learn about Red Orchestra, and it uses the Unreal Engine. It was the Red Orchestra Oostfront game with the Unreal Engine, and yeah, I got to step over to another engine, and but I really liked the game as my interest in World War II, and this was Eastern Front, and from there out I started to create maps with the Unreal Engine, which to me was yeah, if I compare the two, I prefer the Unreal Engine from that day on.
Yeah, I have to agree with you. I prefer the Unreal Engine as well. I don't have nearly as much experience with Radiant, but I certainly prefer Unreal there.
Yeah, yeah.
So let's go ahead and jump in and start talking about your maps, Draza and Overload. Now, both of them made the top 6, which I'm sure you're pretty happy about. Let's kind of just focus on each one and just kind of talk about your thought process and your approach going into the creation of these 2 maps.
Yeah, for Draza I really didn't have much to think about. I just started to create an industrial environment with the assets I have. It really turned out well, and I really narrowed it down to the preferred map size for this game. I already noticed that they really don't have the huge map I was used to create, so I wanted to have some choke points and logical routes. Added some custom decal textures and a skybox, and off we go. And for Overload it was more focused on the contest. Overload I only started when I heard about the contest.
So what about the mission types that you chose for these maps? Draza, you've got the activate objectives, and then on Overload, you got the C4s. When did that come into play in your thought process? Particularly for Overload, right? Did the competition kind of influence that in any way, or do you go into these maps with an objective in mind, or did you kind of build the space out first and then try to fit an objective in after that?
Now for Draza it was easy. I only knew the activate game type by then. So when I started to create that, I only knew one game type. But Overload, I by that time Slums and Cold Front were released, and I really like these two maps, especially Cold Front. I like winter settings, and I really like the C4 version in that map. So I started to use C4 for my maps for Overload, and then the team of the contest was a rail yard, rail area team. So that's why I started to create an industrial looking rail area. Some people in game told me they have some sort of World War II feeling in it. That's I, I thought it was funny when I heard that we were playing it, and the guy said I have some sort of World War II feeling when I'm running in this map, and yeah, because I'm really influenced by World War II games, I had to smile when I was playing that map.
Well, you're from the Netherlands too, and being from Europe, I would have to think that just your surrounding, just pulling from the influences around you, would kind of potentially lend to a World War II type feel.
Yeah, we live in the old world, and when I go outside, you see all these old buildings. You have old industrial areas, but also old villages and stuff like that. So I think where you live, it really influences what you create. And I have worked in an industrial area before. Yeah, so I know how things look inside and what is used. That really helps when you're creating maps.
Yeah, it really does. And I think being able to pull from your surroundings, or if you're trying to design a space that you're not familiar with, doing the research and getting the references for that space before you even start making the map is a very, very important part of the process.
Yeah, I remember when I go to holiday in Croatia, and I took my camera and started to take all kind of pictures of shutters, and my kids and my wife started to smile when I got home with 25, 30 pictures of different types of shutters and doors. And you can use them. It's really sometimes the shadow is messed up, but it's really great. So for Overload, I started. I just want with the announcement of the contest, you have all these kind of pictures, like an example, and it really helped well to start up with what you really want. And I used the size of Cold Front. That measurements that you have to keep in mind. And another thing you have to keep in mind is that you don't get lost in creating, because if you're creating maps like this, you started to want more here, more there, more routes such, and then if you create too much routes, people get lost. If you create only two routes, it's not really attractive. It's all things you have to keep in mind.
I think you bring up some really good points. I mean, you see a lot of people, right? They're going to hop in and they're going to have a lot of ideas, and they're going to want to try to do all of those ideas. Where sometimes you can find yourself just getting in over your head or trying to do too much if you do that. A lot of times it's better to just kind of figure out what you want to do and really just kind of focus down. And you're talking about you coming in and you wanted to do something the size of Cold Front. I think that's great. Like you're figuring out exactly what sort of size of space you want. You can kind of measure the distances and things like that as you're working on it, and that helps to initially kind of set some boundaries for you and something to work within.
That's most important, is if that you keep the size in mind. You don't need to. I never draw sketches if I want to take things like that of a sketch. You have to keep the size in mind, because if you're working and you get out of that, then you get lost. And you have to keep the size in mind and the game you're creating it for, because it's objective. It's an objective game type, this game. So yeah, you don't need to create too big maps.
Speaking of that, though, both of your maps are still fairly large in size, and there's quite a bit going on there. Do you have any kind of estimates of how long it took you to create each map?
Yeah, I'm familiar with the engine. That's a big advantage. I didn't need to learn my way around in the tools. This version of the editor works really stable. I hardly have any crashes, and I think, yeah, I joined the forums in June, and released Draza in early July. So I think I worked a month on it. Let's say 70 to 100 hours.
Sounds like a pretty solid time investment.
Yeah, for that orchestra, sometimes we work 3 months for the map because the size is bigger and you have to, because they use vehicles, and then you have to keep performance in mind. It's much harder. Performance work well in these maps.
It's good to hear you bring up things like performance, just to know that's something you're actually keeping in mind while you're designing your maps. There's certainly a fine line between meeting the visual expectations that people have for the map and the game, and meeting those performance standards that people are going to need to hit as well.
You read a lot of people talking about performance issues and stuff like that. This is what I think it's really if you create a map and only 50% of the people have a normal performance on it, they won't play it. So performance is always important.
Yeah, it definitely is. And that's an issue we ran into a little bit with Intercept, right? Some people were saying there were some performance issues for them when playing that map. So that's something we want to go back and look at and find where the problems are and try to correct those so that as many people can enjoy it as possible.
Yeah, I never use these volumes the cull distance volumes. I never use them. I give every single asset an own value. That's probably a lot of work, but it works well.
Well, you probably give yourself more control that way too.
They have these volumes, but I never use them. I pick all the assets and give them their own specific value.
Yeah, there's really a number of options you can take. There's the distance-based approach. There's level streaming. There's cull volumes. There's plenty of options. Honestly, there's a bit of an art to it too. To get it all working right in the way you want it to. Looking at your maps again, what do you think were some of the biggest challenges that you had to deal with while working with these maps?
Yeah, as said, not to go overload with everything you have and add too much routes. And landscape was new for me. So in Draza I used the all-terrain tool. It works well, but I thought when I really like all the possibilities with landscape. So for overload, I decided to use a landscape and created my own landscape material and textures. That was the biggest challenge.
Yeah, landscape can certainly be a challenge if you're trying to use it for the first time.
I was learning it, and it was a real change, but the possibilities are great, and you can control all kind of values in it. I really had to do things over. Probably 3 times I have to delete my entire landscape and start all over again. It was a pity, but it worked out well. Yeah, I did. Well,
Well, I think it's pretty safe to say you're probably pretty comfortable with the tool now.
yeah, I know what I do. I know what I do now, and it's all trial and error. But that's the creation of levels, and getting into something new is all trial and error. You do something, save much is my advice. Save much.
That is good information for people to keep in mind. I also think it's good for you to point out that, yeah, sometimes it's okay to just scrap things and start over. Sometimes at the end of the day, that's going to give you the better results.
Yeah. I decided if I started to for the solution on that landscape issue I got, it would have take more time than start all over again, and yeah, and then save much and save it to an external disk is one of my most important advice.
And that's actually very good advice that hopefully the people listening to this will jot down for their future use. So I'm curious, if you had more time to work on these maps, is there any changes or additions that you would want to make to them?
For Draza, probably yeah, the lower the yet sound is, and because some people complain it's too loud. But if you stand outside and let
Hey, we love that jet sound here internally. And I mean, the first time we heard it, we were like, "What on earth is that thing?"
yeah, if you stand outside and a yet is flying by very low, it really makes a lot of sound. So yeah, and I probably would add a trigger. I use a trigger for the yet sound, and it would be cool if that trigger is changing position randomly. It's possible. So now I know where people are when the yet flies by because they.
Oh yeah.
There's another trigger. There's a big crane in the distance, which move. If you touch the trigger, that the train of that big crane moves along the map. Probably you didn't see it.
No, but I'll certainly be keeping an eye out for that from now on.
And this, if I see that crane move, I know where people are. That's an advantage you have as a map creator. And for for overload, I would have added more detail and more cover near the objective, but overall cover it. There's more to add to that map, and the long line of fire over the straight rail tracks. That's something which bothered me. But I don't want to. It's a straight rail track. You can't add a cart wagon in a strange angle on there, because so I needed a ruined train cart. That would be great, so I can make some crater and add that cart.
That actually sounds like a pretty good way to fix the sightline issue while also, staying with the theme of the map and, trying to stay realistic with your play space.
That's true. Yeah, I like realistic stuff and add more detail, but then you need feedback on performance and stuff like that. The map isn't finished.
Well, hopefully what this competition is doing is providing you with that feedback so that you know what changes need to be made and you can go make them.
Yeah. If people play it and you get feedback, I have an extract and a activate version also on the workshop. So if people wanted to test that, I think the map is suitable for most game types. The size is good for it and the environment.
Yeah, we were actually mentioning the other day when we were playtesting that we think it'd work well for a take and hold as well. So I'm curious, have you played or seen any of the other top 6 competitors? And if so, have any of those maps caught your eye?
To be honest, I didn't have the chance to play one of the top 6 maps. When there were 12 maps left, I tried to see that contest map server with some guys, and we played Industry and Last Stop. Both I really liked. Last Stop, especially with that broken glass, so that was really a good. But I keep an eye on user-made map servers to play them. But from the last 6, I've seen Dead End. It's a realistic environment I really like. I think it will it will play really well. It's a good created map, and then that Congress Center is really good detailed, and probably will give you some fights in a vertical way. That's really great.
Yeah, Congress Center is a great looking map. We really are liking the architectural style, especially of the center building there. It's got a lot of cool things going on.
Yeah, it's really detailed, but that you can do with that kind of map with interior. You can with the line of you don't have a large line of sight, so you can stuff more detail into a map. But and Dead End will.
So do you have plans to make more maps for America's Army in the future?
Yeah, I really like to do this. It's a great waste of time, and I like to create my own world, fantasy world. And if people play your maps and enjoy them, it's a bonus to it. You run in your own environments and people have fun in it. And but I probably need to create something out of my comfort zone and another environment, something I never did before, which is more of a challenge. I see.
Well, do you have any ideas of what that will be exactly?
Yeah, I seen this map on the forums, Maximum Security Dot, and it really looks great, and it's a real. I think that map really should inspire other people to create user-made missions. That Delta Thunder really did some great work on lighting in that map and its interior. I think something which an interior map would be a good thing to get out of my comfort zone.
Well, an interior space would certainly be a nice change of pace for you, as compared to Overload and Draza.
So I think it has to. You need a challenge to do so, and if it works out well and people help with feedback and stuff like that, it's a bonus on it. It should be great.
Yeah, for sure. I'm looking forward to seeing what you do with that in the future. So, before we wrap up here, is there anything else you want to share with us in the community?
Yeah, the community should support user-made maps, and they add variety to the game they like. They like to play that American Army Proving Ground, and if they have more maps to choose and they can contribute and to the maps and support the people who create them, they also can add their own ideas, and probably the level designer will use their ideas So it's all better for the community, so the community can grow.
Well, Drex, thank you very much for your time today. It's a pleasure to interview you. Congratulations once again on getting to the top 6, and I wish you the best of luck moving forward in the competition.
Yeah, I want to wish all the other competitors luck with the competition, and yeah, it was great to talk to you. Maybe talk to you later.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks once again for your time.